Hello, all you skibbies. This is Great Answer. You are listening to the Kink, Sex, and Culture podcast, formerly the Ropecast. So if you are an old fan of the Ropecast, don't worry. We still have all that kind of good stuff and more. And if you have no idea what the Ropecast is about, then boy, do you have some listening ahead of you, because you can go back and get almost every single episode, except for some of the lost episodes, which only my patrons get. Yeah, this podcast is brought to you by a few different sources, because, you know, I'm not independently wealthy. So I get the support of several people on Patreon. Patreon.com/Great Answer, and they have contributed anywhere from $1 to $20 a month just to help me defray the costs of producing the podcast, and I am extremely grateful, and I try and show that in a few different ways. They get access to several of my sketch notes. They get an erotica story in their email boxes every once in a while, and I'm trying to find more things. So if you can think of something that you would like pay extra money for, not just this podcast, but something you're like, if I had access to this kind of thing, I would pay, buy Gray a cup of coffee. It would be great if you go out on Patreon and do that. Or, hey, if you would buy me a cup of coffee. We used to have one for the Ropecast called Great Answers Monthly Cuppa. And it was basically, if you would buy me a cup of coffee if we were in person, well, you can do that virtually, because I can tell you a portion of that Patreon money does go to my coffee habit. We are also lucky enough to be sponsored by Twisted Monk. Now, it's kind of cool. The guest today, Sophia Sky, is from the same town where Twisted Monk is located. And she is the executive director of the Foundation for Sex Positive Culture and the Seattle Erotic Art Festival. And I may have gotten that title wrong, but she'll fix it when we get to the interview. And he has been a part of all of those things for years. Twisted Monk has. So his rope work is not just about, hey, let's make some rope and sell it and make a buck. He is committed, first of all, to making quality rope and basically selling orgasms by creating rope that people can enjoy. And he's also very committed to doing it in a way that contributes to the community. So when you buy his rope, you're also supporting his workers who are making a living wage and get benefits and paid vacation. And one of the reasons I enjoy watching his Twitter feed is because he talks about that and thanks his customers. And so I'm going to thank his customers too, because a portion of the money they pay him goes towards supporting this podcast. And it's also really cool that we have Lee Allure as our new sponsor. Now, you may not know who Lee Allure is. Lee Allure is a hypnotist. She does all kinds of different hypnotism, but the reason why I got to know her was because I was having trouble remembering the names of people at events. And I go to a lot of events and I meet a lot of people, and it always, as a presenter or even as a organizer, you always hate it when you meet somebody, they tell you their name, and you meet them 5 minutes later and you cannot remember their name. Or you meet them at the next event and you can't remember their name. So I mentioned that to her when we were both at Dark Odyssey, and she said, well, I can help you with that. And I was a little skeptical, so I was a little not sure about that, but she took me aside and she did some memory improvement hypnosis. And I have to tell you that for the next, probably a good 6 months to a year, I had people telling me something they had never told me before. And what that was, wow, you're really good at remembering people's names. And that hypnosis has stuck around. This was years ago. Now, usually hypnosis doesn't always, stick around for a very long time. It's not as good as it was when it was fresh. I kind of need to have a refresher course with her. But that's all the more reason you should visit leallure.com. Not just for, simple stuff like that, but also she does erotic hypnosis. Yeah, if you are into that kind of particular kink, and we will have her on here to talk more about what exactly is involved in that. Especially, there's some interesting questions about consent there, isn't there, with hypnosis? Well, so you should go visit them and visit her at leallure.com, and she has free items for download and also ones you can buy, and she has a book and all kinds of fun stuff. She's also a great presenter, and she is a new sponsor of this podcast. So thank you, Lee, for sponsoring. Now, if you know somebody who you think would like to sponsor the podcast, we still have 2 slots left. Yes, we have two slots to go ahead and be sponsored on the podcast. So just contact me at greatanswer@gmail.com and we can set that up. Now, let's see. Anything else before you go on? Oh, yeah, there's this little thing coming up next weekend. Oh, my God, I finally get to say that, don't I? Coming up next weekend, this time next week, I will be right in the middle of Ropecraft. Won't we, Naya?
Yes, we will.
And we're incredibly excited about that.
Yes.
And it's going along very well. We are really excited about it. You can still get tickets. You can still get day passes. You can still use the Great Answer guest code and get the tickets at our introductory price of $189. We have amazing volunteers. We have a Hitch and Bitches meetup hosted by Mrs. B. We have a trans meetup hosted by Benny. We have board game night hosted by Rigger J. We have Cutthroat Dungeon Rope Edition hosted by Shay. I'm voting for Team Octopussy. Maybe because that's Ozma and Naya's team. We have a whole lot of classes. We have an intensive by Mark Deviat called All the He/She that is available to attendees. Let's see, free donuts. That's also coming up. Anyway, you can find out all about it at ropecraft.net. And hopefully you either have already got your ticket and you can say hi. Here's the thing. I'll love you especially much if you tell me what you think of the podcast. Even if you say, hey, I missed the Ropecast, or gee, Gray, will you stop talking and get to the interview? I will still appreciate just knowing that you listen to the podcast. So thank you very much, and I hope I'll see you there. Now, without further ado, let's go on to the interview with Sophia Sky. I have known her for many years. I lived in Seattle for a year and got to know her even better then. But I think I first met her possibly at Paradise in Seattle. It might be in the first place. Or no, it must have been the Seattle Erotic Art Festival in 2007 when I first volunteered there. Anyway, she is an amazing performer, an amazing teacher, fun to play with, and fun to watch play. In fact, I will be teaching a class called Ground Flow at Ropecraft, and some of the things that I teach in that class are things that I learned from her and through her and was inspired by her. And it goes both ways. I did once a contact improv for polyamory class at a GRU, and she and her partner Jim Duvall took that class idea and after asking me, said, can we take that and run with it? And they have presented it at other events, which in fact I think was the first time I interacted with Dr. Eves, who is now a lover of mine. Wow, it's amazing how it all gets tied together. But in the meantime, let me just say that this is a really fun interview. I do have one apology, maybe. At about the 23 minutes and 25 seconds mark or something like that, we had to switch from Skype to a phone connection. And so her audio gets a little bit softer. I have massaged it and edited it and done what I can to make it listenable, but it's not going to be quite as high quality as the first part, for which I apologize, but I think the content is worth it. And we will also see about getting some kind of a transcription and show notes of this show up as soon as possible. So without further ado, here is my interview with Sophia Sky talking about kink, sex, and culture. Okay, through the magic of Skype and technology, I am currently both sitting here in the rope bondage capital of the world, Madison, Wisconsin, and also talking with someone sitting in a park in the bondage capital of the world, Seattle, in Washington. Hi, Sophia.
Hello, Gray. How are you?
I'm good. Now, do you go by Sophia Sky, or is that your?
I go by Sophia. Sophia Sky was an accident. That's a very humorous story. If you'd ever like to hear it, I would definitely.
I love the stories of names.
So do you remember? Now I can't even remember the game now. But it was a late '90s video game, StarCraft.
Oh yeah. They actually right now, Ruff and Namarato is sitting there going, huh? Because he used to play it a lot too. Yeah, I didn't play a whole lot of it, but I did play it every once in a while, yeah.
I did not play a whole lot of it, but my ex-husband did, and he went by Skyzar. And so when I got online and had to pick a name, I thought, well, I'm not terribly creative and generally not allowed to name things, so I just picked Skyzarina. And when I got online and joined Yahoo groups and chat and things like that, I was terribly worried about all the axe murderers that were out there on the internet that could get you if you ever met them or if they ever tracked you down and found you.
Stranger danger.
Right. So I didn't use any name but that one. And so, of course, in the chat rooms, people shortened things to make life easier, and everybody started calling me Sky. Eventually, I met a bunch of these people, and they were not axe murderers, and it seemed a little silly to go by this name, Sky Zarina. It's kind of pretentious, as it were. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go by Sophia. And to let everybody know that it was still me, I put Sophia Sky with the idea that I would drop the Sky at some point when everybody knew it was me. And it stuck. People thought that was my last name. And I'm like, well, my last name is really hard to spell and really hard to pronounce, so I'm going to roll with this.
Yeah, let's go with it. Exactly.
Easier. Yeah, and then I met Jim Duvall, whose nickname also ended up with a Nick surname. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just leave it be then.
Speaking of axe murderers.
Yes. No, he's different.
He is, yeah. For those who don't know, Jim is not, to my best of my knowledge, a convicted axe murderer.
He is not.
If I was casting a movie and I needed to find someone who could convey the aura of an axe murderer, he is probably one of the top 3 people I would pick.
Oh.
Just because he knows how to convey that kind of a thing. But this is not about him. This is about you. But just tangentially, you mentioned in that you are not normally allowed to name things. Is that a reference to your particular relationship dynamic?
No, that is a reference to that. I don't. The names that I come up with are usually not very good.
Okay.
I had a cat named CAT. I had a dog named Two Ears because he was the first puppy to have his 2 ears up.
That's not that doesn't sound. I mean, I've heard worse. I mean, you're talking to somebody whose C name is Gray Dancer. My first name is actually Gray, and I have a degree in dance. I mean, right. Talk about unoriginal.
So, in other words, I'm in good company. Fabulous. Maybe it's not as bad as I thought.
Exactly. Well, I always do enjoy your company. And I have known you for many years, but I'll be honest, I don't know your origin story. As far as I know, you just sprung fully formed out of Kinky Zeus's head and took over the Seattle scene. Was it at all more complicated than that, or?
It's both simpler and more lengthy than that.
Well, let's go way back. Let's get personal.
Yeah, we'll do the way back machine. How far back do you want me to go? Like,
well, when did you discover you were kinky?
Oh,
and I realize there's 2 different things there. There's when did you start doing things that were kinky, and at what point did you suddenly realize, oh, everybody's not like this?
Right. Yeah, those are a couple of different things. Thank you for bringing up that difference. There were a couple of things that I look back now and I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. So Star Wars was a big part of my childhood. And when I was like, I don't know, I think I was like 7 or 8, and the neighbor kids would all play Star Wars, and I, of course, had to always be Han Solo, and they didn't want me to be Han Solo because I was a girl. I didn't see the problem, personally. And then they would say things like, well, you have to be Princess Leia so that we can capture you and tie you to the tree and rescue you. And I would go, okay, I'll get tied. And then there was, the fantasies that I started having when I was about 11, I would say. That prepubescent start into sexual fantasies. And I used to have a lot of fantasies about being like captured and tied up so that I couldn't get away. And my grandmother had, I lived with my grandmother as a child, had some neighbor friends that were a couple of dykes in their 40s, a little bit older, gray, very distinguished, very solid women, and a very, very butch, both of them, actually. And I used to hear my dad and my uncle make jokes about them being lesbians. And that was very intriguing to me, that they were lesbians and that they were doing sexy things with each other, which at the time I didn't have a very clear idea of what it was, but I'm sure that it involved bondage in some way. And I always used to wish that whenever I would be sent over there by my Nana to give them, jam from the fruit trees or whatever it was that she was sending me over there as an errand to do, that they would keep me there and do things to me. Wasn't terribly clear on what the was, but it involved keeping me in bondage and so that I couldn't leave. And it never, because they were ethical people and I was 11. So that's the way back. And I would probably say that really it wasn't until I started stealing my dad's porn magazines and movies that I was like, well, where's the tying up part? What's wrong? Where's this isn't what I thought it would be. No one's tied up. They're just, licking and sucking and fucking and that's nice and all, but where's the tying up? So
that should be a T-shirt right there.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that would make a good T-shirt. So that was probably when I was probably 13 or 14 that I realized that, the stuff that I want to do is, even though I think it's sex, it's not what most people think of as sex. Tied up my first boy when I was 17.
Wow. So you started out as a top?
I started out as somebody that tied people up and tied myself up because, that's how you make things happen, is by going and doing them.
Gotcha. Okay.
There was no top and bottom at that point for me. There was a lot of switching very early with all the people that I experimented with when I was young.
And I remember one of the first things that I heard about you was that once a year you and Kilawama would have you would suspend him and do things to him. So obviously it has somewhat continued, or at least it did for quite a while. Do you bother with identifying now, or are you just happily switchy?
I just go switchy. Yeah, I tend to find that while I really enjoy switching with people or switching within a scene, I more often end up being toppy with someone or bottomy with somebody. It's just like kind of what works best in the situation.
Now, did you learn your rope skills in Seattle?
Yes. What I was doing before was not very skillful, and I just kind of, I knew how to tie my shoes, so that's what I did.
That's all you need.
And so, yeah, in Seattle was where I was like, oh, you mean there's better ways to do this where it doesn't cinch down and hurt after a while? Cool, I want to learn that. I have to admit, for the longest time, I was all about cuffs, like leather cuffs and stuff like that, because you didn't worry about getting your circulation cut off or difficulty untying knots and that kind of thing.
Yeah, have you seen those little armband things that people are wearing these days?
No, I have not.
They're kind of like leather cuffs that you put around your upper arm, just to help protect the radial nerve, and they're stylized in a way that they actually look pretty damn cool. And
that's fast. Well, hopefully they'll come and take my class on nerve palpation so that they know where to place those little bands so that they can do any good.
Yeah, nerve palpation. That's an interesting way. I've seen lots of classes on nerve placement and placing ropes. Why do you specify palpation?
Because if you can find where the nerve is, you don't have to guess. A lot of times I have seen people get caught up in the measurements of, well, I'm 3 finger widths above the elbow, so I can't have gotten your nerve with the rope. Like, you should be fine. And that's just not the way bodies work. There was that guy from the UK who was like drawing on the body and telling people exactly where the nerves were, and based on all these different drawings of all these different books. And it's like, bodies don't work that way. Every anatomy book is different because each anatomy book is based on X number of cadavers that they had, and then they averaged out what that set of cadavers had most often in which place. So you're getting an average of one particular group, and that's why a lot of anatomy texts are slightly different. And it's okay. It's good that they're slightly different because people are slightly different.
Yeah, I have some people, will pull out their Grey's Anatomy textbook to point out things to me, and I'm like, well, that's great if you're tying me up, but anyone else, you need to go off and get some better information. And do you think that, we weren't always doing this kind of paying this much attention to things? Were people just getting injured, or have we been just tying more radically, and so that's why it seems like there's more danger of injury now?
I'm not terribly sure. I think a lot of it has to do with how much the idea of performance has pervaded the bondage culture in the U.S. And the reason I say that is because, as someone who has done a fair amount of performance, there is the show must go on mentality that I think most performers have. I've done some pretty hideous things to myself. I've watched my other troupe members, work through broken bones in their foot while they continued to do a dance routine because the act wasn't over. And, and then had to deal with the repercussions. And then as soon as, the curtain went down, all hell broke loose. So when you're performing, that's just what you do, is you are contractually obliged to finish the performance. Not only as a performer that has been hired to do something, but also it's a point of pride. There's also a point of pride in completing your art and showing it off that I think is a really powerful motivation for people. And I think that when we start layering that on top of our intimate relationships, which most people who are doing rope bondage are usually in some kind of intimate relationship, I think that that's where I'll take just a little bit more. Or, we're almost done. Just let me finish, tying this, and then it'll be perfect. And it becomes more about the performance than it does about the person that you're doing things with. And it becomes more about, it becomes less about yourself. And I think when you're doing that for art, that's something that you're making a decision about for yourself. And I think art is something really worthy of using up and damaging your body for, because there's a higher purpose there. And this is totally me. I'm not saying that everybody thinks this way. But when you have a relationship with another person that's entangled with that, there is some amount of discounting of that other person. And whether you're the person getting tied or doing the tying, either way, it's disrespectful to the other person. They don't let me consent to the damage that I am doing to their body. That's not fair to me.
It's a matter of respecting the relationship. Have you had the conversation where, okay, when we are doing a performance, I am going to do whatever I have to do to make the performance great. And that is going to include not giving you the communication that you may want or desire. And I will not be able to respect your sense of being able to consent to riskier things. Because if in the moment I realize that it's going to be riskier for me to do something, and I choose to do it because I feel it's important to the performance, and I don't inform you of what you are what these risks are going to be and how you are going to be culpable in them, that's a lack of respect. Now, if you've had that conversation with the people that you're performing with and or playing with, where it's like, okay, this is it. Are you agreeing that I'm going to more likely get hurt when we're performing, because that's what happens when you put aside personal safety for the sake of a show. Is that acceptable to you? And I don't think enough bottoms look at how important it is for tops to be able to clearly consent to the amount of risk that their bottom is going to be put in. So if as a bottom I don't tell you that I have a heart condition and you're going to suspend me face down with a really tight chest harness, tightness around the rib cage is contraindicated for people with heart conditions who've recently had a heart attack. If I don't tell you that, you are doing something risky and you don't know you are.
Right.
And so it's the same thing in performance. You cannot communicate in a performance the way you do in a scene. It would look stupid. It would look like a scene. It would be a performance. It wouldn't be art.
But isn't the top just supposed to know automatically through their top leadness?
You're talking to a switch, honey.
Yeah, yeah. It was a rhetorical question.
I'm sorry, I didn't see where your tongue was. Pardon me.
It reminds me of a consent policy I saw once where it said that the top is always responsible for whatever happens in the scene, including any consent violations. And I hypothesized a situation where, I'm a top playing with my bottom and you're a top playing with your bottom, and my bottom does a consent violation on your bottom. Which of you and me is the one who's to blame?
Obviously you, because aren't you in full control of your
Oh, that's right. You're right. That is the answer to that. I you're right. I was not thinking that through. Silly me.
Oh, see, well, you're going to have to go back to Domley school.
Yeah. I am but a domlet. I am,
It's okay. I keep flunking out. They keep kicking me out. I never do it right. I start giggling and poking people, and it's ridiculous.
So we actually started this talking about why you're palpating nerves. Do you want to talk a little bit about your background and why you're qualified to talk about palpated nerves?
So I was licensed for massage therapy in the state of Washington in 1994. And I've been doing massage since then. I've worked mostly with people who are in treatment for acute injuries, and the other primary motion of my practice was working with people who have old injuries that they're just trying to live with and work through better, or live better in spite of them. And so I've spent a lot of time. Let's see, what year is it now? It's 2017. So I've been poking and touching and prodding and massaging people for 23 years. And I did it full time until a year ago when I took on, or actually 2 years ago when I took on being the executive director of the Foundation for Sex Positive Culture. And there are some pretty amazing things that you can tell from somebody just by touching their tissue and knowing where things are tight and how that affects the way they move. I've done a lot of continuing education around things that would be in the physical therapy realm if I were allowed to do that. I don't do that type of treatment, but I have a lot of that information in my background so that I can treat people more effectively for their soft tissue injuries. That, and I just read everything about bodies, and I think bodies are amazing and fun to touch and poke and do things to.
Yeah, how has that knowledge informed your kink in general? I mean, some people would say, "Well, I don't want to know what's going on. I don't want to know how to tie this thing. I don't want to know what nerves are going on there." But has it enriched it, or has it made it less magical?
It has definitely enriched it. It's also informed my kink in the sense that I do very little with tools. I use my hands for everything. I use my body for everything. I've tried to learn how to flog. I'm scared of canes. I've only used canes on people a little bit, and I still don't feel qualified. They just are not. They don't work like a hand does.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't have the inclination to put the effort into becoming proficient with it, even though I've had some amazing people like Suzanne Sexy Sadist give me a cane lift.
Oh, a moment of pondering and thinking of Suzanne Sexy Sadist. Mm-hmm.
Yep, she's yummy.
So you mentioned you're the director of the Foundation for Sex Positive Culture. That's that. How can that possibly work? We can't have a foundation for sex positive culture that actually has directors. That's just downright un-American. How did that come about?
Well, first I looked at education for directors, and Alina Gabosh retired, and she named me as her successor, as well as I had been involved with the organization since 2000 when did I first join the Seattle Erotic Art Festival? 2005 was when I started volunteering for that program.
Yeah, I think 2007 was the first year that I volunteered, and that was a life-changing experience coming out there. It
was pretty wild stuff. So I've been doing that, and in 2013 I took on being the festival director for the Seattle Erotic Art Festival, which is it's 70% of the foundation's income for the year, that one event. So I was running the biggest part of the foundation, and I was doing the education coordination. So I knew the most about the organization, and so I got the job. And now I'm the boss, head Shenaniganarian.
Yes, I love that name. If you look at her Ropecraft bio, listeners, you will see that Sophia identifies as a Shenaniganarian. Is it possible that can be something that other people can be? Because I'm honestly feeling like I might want to convert to Shenaniganarianism.
I think you should. That was conferred upon me by Sierra Cirque, who is she refers to herself as a porn sparkle. I think she's a porn star, and my love of the word shenanigans, and she was the one that coined that, and I gladly took up the moniker. And I think definitely it should become a phenomenon where people convert to Shenaniganarianism.
Yeah, I think that the world needs more shenanigans, and who better to spread them than Shenaniganarians?
Yep.
The way I get invited into it is you have to be able to pronounce it.
Yes, it only takes a little bit of practice. You'll be fine.
Now, I would. You must have an elevator speech for the Seattle Erotic Art Festival, because I'm sitting here going, how can I describe that to my listeners? And my God, it's such a. It's like stepping into a different world. I mean, how do you describe it to people when you have to give your short speech?
The Seattle Erotic Art Festival is a space that we create once a year. It's a long weekend where we showcase art that focuses on anything to do with human sexuality, gender, identity, as well as parts going into parts. And we create a space to allow people to become art themselves. We create a space where people can express their true, authentic personality. They can try on a sexuality. They can try on a persona. It's a place where people can be in a sexy, artistic environment.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The wide variety of things that are there, ranging from just good old fashioned porny art prints to paintings to sculptures to performances to performance art painty sculptures. You guys had a ride a clit sculpture there. I've seen some pictures
We
of.
did. It was amazing.
Strangely, none of the men could find it, but other than that, it was.
No, actually, we made sure to put it where everybody can find it. We did. One of our head of security, Nick, actually did say something about how it would be far more funny to put it somewhere in the back of the hall, and so that only the really good men could find it. And the women folk, of course.
Yes. Stereotypes are fun only if they're true, so it's okay.
Yeah. I told them no. We weren't like that. We were about enabling.
Right. Hey, out of curiosity, who is your who did you hand off the education to? The education directorship?
Right now, I am. I have a lovely volunteer. Her name is Leah, who has a background in teaching for Planned Parenthood back in the Midwest, where she's from. And so she's helping me run that right now, and we're doing that together.
Gotcha. Part of the reason I was asking is I thought for a while Do Not Go Gently had been working with that.
Oh, I would love that. Love that so very much. And unfortunately, the Center for Sex Positive Culture, our sibling organization, got a hold of her first as their volunteer coordinator.
That's what it was. So. Okay, yeah, she ran the rope in space at the very first Ropecraft. So. Yeah, it was. And
she also ran our open space unconference that we did, ConsentCon, earlier this year.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Fantastic.
Yeah, we had a tiny little consent conference that was absolutely amazing. I mean, we had people talking about consent in corporate situations, consent with law enforcement. That was truly, it was incredible, the people that showed up for it. I can't wait to do it again next year.
Yeah, good. Now, I mean, since you brought it up first, I was going to try and stick to light subjects, but we could talk about consent all the time if we wanted to, but I guess in general, there's a lot of. You've seen, been around for a while, not to imply that you're old, because you're, as young as...
I'm a grown-up. I'm totally a grown-up. I have to, press that advantage every chance I get.
So, I mean, what... It seems like suddenly that you turn every corner on FetLife or every new event is having some kind of a consent scandal or a consent issue or something going on. Any thoughts about why that is, or what you'd like to see happen to maybe improve the environment?
I think that we're hearing about it more because there's less shame in talking about it. Have you ever heard that saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me?
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot of people that feel a lot of shame if something goes poorly, even the first time, and I really do think that the majority of consent violations or consent injuries are true products of miscommunication that are exacerbated by people not wanting to be wrong or bad.
Mm-hmm.
We have, so we also started the Consent Academy not long after, probably about the same time I think that you were starting your big consent advocacy group.
Yeah, Consent Rocks.
A few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's official now. It's Consent Rocks.
Consent Rocks. Okay, thank you. I was a little unclear of.
There was another group that we were briefly associated with, and they sort of took the name with them. So.
Gotcha. I understand how that goes.
Uh-huh.
since that we've started the Consent Academy, we now have at all of our big events, we have a consent advocate who is there at all times. So at our Halloween party seduction last October, we had 2 people on staff the whole time to be there for anybody to talk to and as a resource for our security team. And then this year we had a team of people that took turns all through the 4 nights of the festival.
Neat.
And it's really fabulous to be able to say, we had one incident where someone wanted to talk to a consent advocate, and they talked about how they were displeased with the way an interaction with another attendee went, and after talking to them, they didn't want to fill out any paperwork, and they felt better about the situation just having talked to someone about it.
Right, just letting them be heard.
Right, and that to me was a real big, like a confirmation that a lot of times it's just hurt feelings and someone wants to be acknowledged that they got hurt, and it just goes poorly wrong. We have had 2 different consent incidences come up where that have gone through our process and all that good kind of stuff, and each time that I was involved with this, and I was involved because they were volunteers of mine, I talked to the person that was reported against and was like, so this is what happened, and before you say anything, I want you to know that I don't think you're a bad person, and as you go into this process, I want you to think about what can you do to stay a part of this organization? What can you do to stay a part of this community? Rather than, don't think about whether you're right or wrong or not. Think about, or whether the person is telling the truth or not. Think about what needs to be done to keep this organization whole. And one of them took my advice.
A 50% success rate is not terrible.
And not bad at all. And really, I think most of the time, if people could just shift from, I didn't violate your consent, that doesn't make any sense at all. We agreed on that. It was all consensual. And if you just shifted to, oh my God, I thought we were having consensual sex. I'm so sorry that I misunderstood something. What can I do to make this right? And the interesting thing that I have found is that when I have known people who have come at the situation from that second point of view, it's amazing how things either disappear or get resolved really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who just disappear, I think there could be a couple of things going on there. I could think that they were trying to get something else out of that interaction other than an apology or something made right. Or they're like, oh, okay, cool, thanks. That's what I need.
Yeah. Wow. I love this. This is like one of those examples of parallel development kind of thing. Because that is very similar to the Consent Rocks policy, and it's we found the same thing, is that most of the time it's people really need to feel heard, and it's not about necessarily right or wrong or sides or things like that. It's about reducing the trauma, and trying to say, okay, who's hurt? How can we try and take the pain out of it and actually come up with a constructive path forward? So that's really great to hear. Good job. Sorry if that sounded patronizing. I'm just like, I'm thrilled to know that there's other groups out there doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, most definitely. And to be super honest, we do have we're coming from a restorative justice point of view, which does include a segment of finding out if somebody did wrong.
Right, and that was my next question. How do you, because restorative justice is a big piece that's missing from a whole lot of the discussion about consent, is a workable method of restorative justice. What process, I mean, do you have it written out in bylaws, or how does that work?
We have, actually, if you go on the Foundation for Sex Positive Culture's website, the FSPC.org, and you go in, on our, I believe it's our top navigation bar, and go on to policies, we have our consent policy and our consent procedures detailed out in there, and then we have like a little kind of a manifesto, I guess, of sorts, kind of like a reasoning, like why we made this policy, and acknowledging that this policy is a fluid document and it's not set in stone, and that we're always trying to learn, and and that people can give us feedback, like the opportunity for growth is actually built into our process. And we have an amazing person that heads up the Consent Academy. The director of that is Bar Sturmack, who is also one of the board members for the Foundation for Sex Positive Culture. And we're just incredibly blessed to have Sar on our team. Sar is an amazing therapist who one of the most mellow, calmest people you'll ever meet. They will lure you into a sublime state where you can learn how to be the best person you can be.
Nice. Well, before we get into any deeper into the infinite hole that is consent discussions, I'd like to sort of switch gears back to things more fun. You mentioned doing the nerve palpation. Any other or what else are you looking forward to teaching at Roopcraft?
Oh, I missed something there. I heard. I missed. There was something missing in there.
I was just asking, to switch gears to back to Roopcraft and your classes you're teaching. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're bringing with you to Roopcraft? I know not only are you teaching classes, but you're also assisting Jim and teaching his classes.
Yeah, we go back and forth helping each other out. So he's my TA for the palpation for rope bondage class. And just to put a little word out there, I'd love to have any other body workers who want to help out with that class. I don't, depending on how many people I get, with Jim, I can only handle about like 15 to 20 people. So I put out a little call on FetLife to see if anybody is interested in being a TA for that. And it only takes like 20 to 30 minutes for me to orientate somebody, as long as you have a body work background and a palpation background. Let's see, the other class Jim and I are co-teaching together is body mechanics and physics for suspension, which is a really, really, really awesome class that came out of him watching me suspend people, and most of the people I suspend are individuals much larger than me, usually male-bodied. And so he saw me doing things that were not easy, and he's like, why are you killing yourself trying to make this happen? Let me teach you a little bit about physics and leverage. So that class was born out of, hey, I bet there's lots of other people that are smaller that tie up people bigger than them. And we can make their lives easier and help them be more dominant by, doing things effortlessly. And then also, as I developed more and more physical problems with my back, having good posture and body mechanics during bondage became more and more important for me. And it was like, if there's somebody else out there with a bad back that needs this stuff too. So it's really focused on doing suspension safer for the rigger, and looking effortless and masterfully.
That sounds fantastic. It's one of those things where I'm, my proof of my own masochism is that I bring in all these great people to events, and then I don't get to go to any of the classes usually because I'm either busy teaching my own classes or working on. Or being the event, the event director, yeah. Although my own goal for that is to have it so that if I didn't even show up, my team could handle it without me, and I still think I would put them up against that. I think they could do that fine. They don't want me to try it though. One of these days, but not now.
I'm going to challenge you then to pick a class to go to and go to it no matter what. This year at the art festival, I went and walked the gallery 2 different times during the weekend with my friends.
Wow.
And was able to look at the art and just chat with my friends. And true, each time it was probably only for about 30 minutes or so, maybe 40 minutes each time. But I got to take that time away from being in charge of everything. And I think you should, if you have that good of a team, then I'm going to challenge you to allow them to take care of things for you and enjoy your own event.
Well, to be fair, I've actually gotten to do that a couple of times in the last two ones. One in particular that I really enjoyed was doing getting to be IP Cookie Monster's demo partner for a rope and dance improv class.
Right.
So yeah, I get to do it, but it's you know what it's like. You're even if everything's going well. In fact, on Sunday at Ropecraft in New Orleans, I got up and I went downstairs and I panicked because it was class time starting and there was nobody around. I mean, like the hallways were empty, and I'm like, "Where is everybody? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, they're in the classes." And it turned out that our line system had worked so well that there had been no waiting for lines. So,
awesome.
but it made me panic. I'm like, "Wait a minute, what's going on?" Well, we are really glad to have you coming out, you and Jim. It's long overdue. Well, I can't say that, we've only had 3 of them, but it's definitely one of those things where when I started doing it, you want to show this neat thing that you're doing to all your friends, and you were definitely on that list of people. I'm like, I wish Sophia could see this. So it is great to have you there.
Well, I already have a compliment to give you, and we haven't even got to the event. May I give it to you now?
Sure.
So when I went to go look at the classes and the class schedule to see when I was teaching and what classes I wanted to go to, when I looked at because I'm teaching on Saturday morning in the first round, I looked at all the other teachers and I went, oh, great. All the other female rope top teachers or female led classes are going on the same time I'm teaching. How fucked up is that? And then I looked at all the other rest of the classes and saw that it was, I think it might even be slightly more than half all female-identified educators, and I was so incredibly pleased by that. That made me so very happy. Congratulations.
Well, I'm blushing because I'm sitting here going, that's absolutely awesome, because that I don't think I can't say we weren't aware of it. We always have a goal of decolonizing the roster as much as possible. But it wasn't like we sat there and counted and said 1, 2, 3. Okay, now 1, 2, 3, and then things like that. So, thank you. I'm glad that was noticeable and pleasing. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Yay!
Definitely.
We will also have to give credit where credit is due to our presenter liaison who helps pick them out, which would be Naya.
Thank you, Naya.
At the end of every podcast, I do lightning questions for my guests, and they're simple things, just whatever comes to the top of your head or the tip of your tongue or whatever that you want to answer. And it's sort of like think of it kind of like a not quite a dating app, but if you were filling out a character sheet with you, it'd say your favorite of this and this, that, and the other thing. So, you ready?
Yep, ready.
All right. What is your favorite food?
Food. You said the first thing that comes to head. I like lots of things except for fried food, asparagus, and pork.
Okay. That works.
I like food a lot.
And your beverage of choice?
Right now I discovered gin and lemonade.
Gin and lemonade. What kind of gin?
Sound Spirits gin.
Say that again?
Sound Spirits gin. It's a little boutique distillery here in Seattle.
Of course it is. You Seattleites in your bubble. I miss you guys.
Well, they used to be my neighbors.
I know.
I miss them.
I know. So let's pretend you're going to go off on a long trip and you only have room for one book. What book would you bring?
Probably one of the Harry Potter books. Probably the longest one.
Ah, okay. And if I said to you, hey, I'm looking for a good book to read, can you recommend one? Would the answer change at all?
Yes. Right now, I've just started reading This Is Your Brain on Music.
Ah. Cool.
The thing that it caught me is that they talked about that there is something, the way that your brain is set up for why do you latch onto music that you listen to in your late teens, early 20s. What is it about your brain development that makes that such a way to set music for, like, set your taste for the rest of your life?
That is a good. That I would be interested in knowing that, because it's frustrating to me sometimes to be the old man who goes, what are you listening to? That's crap. That's cool. And
I haven't talked about that yet. I'll share it when I do.
How about a good movie that you'd recommend?
Oh, so I'm a big fan of martial arts-based movies, and right now my favorite movie is tied in between The Golden Cane Warrior and Hero, or Heroes.
Golden Cane Warrior.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to look these up now. Okay. Yep. So, getting into the kink realm, what is something in your toy bag that would surprise people?
Oh, that would surprise people?
Yeah. That you have in your toy bag that would that people who are thinking, oh yeah, Sophia, she's this great presenter from Seattle, I can picture exactly what's in their rope bag, and then you pull it out and they're like, what? I never would have expected that.
Probably surprising that there's nothing but rope, carabiners, and dental dams.
That is an interesting combination. Rope, carabiners, and dental dams. Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. I answered the question perfectly. Okay, so let's pretend that I have a magic wand, and I can wave it, and I can make appear anyone, past, present, live, dead, future, fictional, real, whatever, and they're in perfect health and they want to play with you. Who would you like to have me make appear?
Oh, I want to tie up Arnold Schwarzenegger in his Mr. Olympian days.
All right, that was an easy answer. It sounds like you put some thought into this.
Well, you gave me a good lead up time.
Yeah. Oh, that would be interesting. I'm trying to think if that would have a lot of rope or just the right amount of very thin and very nasty rope.
I don't do super mean rope. I actually try to make my the rope that I do pretty comfortable for the most part, because I want people to last a long time while I do all the terrible things and climb on top of them and use them as trapeze. I want that time to last.
Ah, yes. Which, is why you learn all the nerves, so you know how to avoid them.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question is a pretty easy one. What is your favorite dirty word?
Oh. That's hard, actually. I'm going to stick with shenanigans.
Lovely. That's a unique one. We've had a long string of cunt and fuck, and so having shenanigans is... I love that idea as well.
And also I have a really hard time with I don't have a lot of shame built into what my kinks are.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that's like when people are like, "Oh, you're a dirty girl," my first reaction is, "I'm not. I showered today. Breathe, I swear." So.
Yeah. There you go.
I have a hard time of all these fun things is dirty.
Nice.
There's mud.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. We will see you in just a couple of weeks at Ropecraft. And honestly, I think this is going to go out right before the Ropecraft starts. So
Cool.
you may have people listening to you when they actually see you. I want you to autograph their iPhones or something.
Well, that's just silly now.
Well,
I'm the person. Thank you so much for having me at Ropecraft, and I'm super excited to see what's going to happen.
Me too. I would like to thank Sophia for taking that time. We covered a lot of things that are kind of like my favorite thing is like performance stuff and consent, obviously, and restorative justice. And it's just really cool to see and get to talk to a kindred spirit like that, especially someone as vivacious and wonderful and exciting as she is. She absolutely brightens any convention where she's at just with her energy and the way that she comes into the room. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And thank you also, Twisted Monk, twistedmonk.com. If you are looking for a bondage rope, that's the place to go with fantastic stuff. We're going to get him out to Ropecraft one of these days. And also, I'd like to thank Lee Allure for her sponsorship of this and also for her help. If you are at all interested in erotic hypnosis, you should visit leeallure.com, LeeAllure.com, and let me know that you did that so I can let her know that, hey, this is a person who came to you from the Kink Sex Culture podcast. You can always find us at kinksexculture.com. And you can email me your comments at greatanswer@gmail.com. I'm also Great Answer on Twitter, on FetLife, on Facebook. Hey, I had somebody suggest that I should start doing Facebook Live things. Is that something you'd be interested in? If it is, you know what? If it is, find me on Facebook and ping me there. That way I'll know that you're actually going to be there. That will be an interesting little experiment in social behaviorism, because we'll see if I actually hear from anybody on Facebook. I double dog dare ya. In the meantime, I will continue to do my exploration of kink, sex, and culture, because when it's more complicated than black and white, you might as well dance in the gray.